All right, for people joining the live stream, this is a brainstorming discussion about a very old issue, which is how best to format polynomials like this. We say x squared minus 1 there. And in standard form, that comes out as minus 1 plus x squared. And the question is, are we optimizing what we do for multivariate polynomials in traditional form? So does Roger or Michael want to say something about that? I hope they're here.
Yes, I'm here, but no.
No.
Okay, great.
Why did this come up now? Can I ask what the motivation is for out of
bunch of cases that I saw,
possible issues?
Yeah, a bunch of cases that I saw that looked really ugly. I actually don't remember is the real answer. Why it came up, right? I mean, I think this has been something which has been planned to be discussed for months.
Okay, so my guess was Wolfram Alpha notebooks, but
definitely not. Definitely not.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
So what little I can say about this is that, right, we have, in traditional form, we have dedicated code for ordering polynomials. And in fact, that was worked on, I believe, by you with Maxime for version 7. And there's a variable thing which controls whether or not to use it. And there are cases where we disable it because it's potentially quite slow. And so if speed is very important, we might disable it for specific when typesetting certain expressions. I believe it's bot form, backtick, $use new traditional form. No.
Well, is it the case? I mean, conceivably, this is one of these. There isn't a problem. We shouldn't worry about it. I mean, is that? I mean, I think this is always very frustrating to me. The fact that standard form formats that way. But I guess there's nothing we can really do about that. I mean, do we think this is right?
Yes.
Well, I mean, that is accurately representing the input form.
It is right. You don't, yes, what Itai said. You don't want to mess with standard form in this particular way.
Because of compatibility, or because it's better the way it is?
It's better the way it is. It should visually more or less reflect the input form with respect to order lists.
Well, I understand it, but why is the input form? Why is the ordering criterion putting -1 before x squared?
Well, it's part of the internal canonical ordering, which in turn is very important for adding and multiplying internals of plus and times. I mean, yeah, maybe we could have two different versions of that, one for output formatting and
no, I'm not suggesting. I'm asking you the question. The fact that this comes out in this order, I see. You're saying algorithmically, it's
the canonicalization is important internally because that's where we collect constant parts, for example.
But you're saying that the canonicalization critically depends on the fact that the terms of order x to the 0 come first, and so on. Is that right?
Yes, my recollection there's this code accum nums used in both plus and times to get constant parts. And it really does want to see that stuff first in the ordering. There's a lot of times in plus internal code that does rely on that. Okay. Mark Safrania may know also.
Right, and the advantage of this canonical ordering, right, is that you always know that the 0th order term is first, whereas as opposed to you could say it's always last, but knowing it's always first is sort of more useful.
Well, like I say, there's in plus and times, there's internal code that relies on that. So we would have to have two different versions of ordering if we were going to have it format differently by default.
What do you mean by two different versions of ordering? You mean?
I mean, we can't mess with the internal code on this.
Roger, could you mute yourself, please? Okay. So, I mean, do people agree that that's an unfortunate ordering for display?
I'm not convinced one way or the other.
Really? I mean, no
Really.
human would like that. No human would say that polynomial in that order.
You usually want to see a top degree going down. For power series, it's the opposite. I'm not convinced one way or the other. If it didn't start with a minus sign, you probably wouldn't worry about it.
Okay, let's
right. So there is an undocumented function called polynomial form, which I believe will format.
I never heard of it. How old is it? Is it like 30 years old?
Probably. I have this vague recollection Robbie Villegas worked on something like that, probably going back to when he was in tech support.
Wow. Okay, what does it do?
Well, apparently nothing in this case, but it does somehow reorder things, and I know it's used all over the alpha code base. But I can't answer very specifically what it does. I thought it reordered things so that.
Could you just look at the code and see what?
Isn't it inside used in traditional form type? Because traditional form does go degree first, I thought.
It does. We can see that here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
All right. I have another question. If we looked at in the wild literature of all the polynomials and expressions and so on that people have hand formatted, do we know what we would see? I mean, or did we do that for version 7? I don't know, to get to this ordering.
I mean, you would know, right? You were the one that was involved in that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Let me see. I can look in my archives. So you said Maxime was the person who was
Right. Okay, so there's.
When was this? Around 2006?
Okay, I looked at the code. So you need to set an option. So if you do polynomial form of that and then add a traditional order goes to true, then. It's that. Okay, STE traditional order.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So in other words, we could conceivably have this wrapper, I mean, independent of traditional form, which does a million other things in terms of formatting. This is a wrapper that would give us, is that just a display form?
It should be.
Yes.
Okay, but it's not. Okay, but it's not an actual print form, so it doesn't strip itself.
Okay, so there's a lot of activity I see in my archive in 2006 on traditional form. Do you think that's the period of time? When was version 7?
Came out in late 06 or 07.
Okay. Okay, so I'm looking at, looks like there was a lot of activity in 08 around this.
That's when 7 came out. It came out November 08.
Which version?
7.
Okay.
Yeah, I was mistaken. 7 came out in late 08, and then the point releases were in 09.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So there's traditional for tooltips. Okay. So there's a bunch of stuff here. Let me just look up polynomials. a lot of commits associated with this. Okay, well, I'm seeing a bunch of notebooks from design reviews, tool tips. Okay, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's here in this archive, but not so easy to pick up. Well, my question is, if we were to get a bunch of polynomials from, random papers and so on, what would we find in terms of the ordering that we would see?
Lots of different things. So, for instance, if it's, for various domains like a commutative algebra and so on, probably would be in an order which is known as a term order, like what we use for Grosvenor basis, if it's in distributed form. You would find, if someone uses sort of a recursive style algorithm that effectively do one dimension at a time, it would probably not be distributed at all. It would be univariate with coefficients that are themselves polynomials, univariate all the way down, for instance. And you can have mixtures of that. You can have factored forms. You can have, you would often find them elided because they tend to be big. So there's a lot of things to do, but the way this specific thing, I just,
Right. By the way, I noticed Seth Chandra on our live stream agreeing with my issue that, when you start showing people our product, doing mathy things, this always strikes them as odd. I mean, there's always a hiccup explaining that. Michael, do you have any comments on this? I mean, in Wolfram Alpha, we don't do this, right? In Wolfram Alpha, we would do it the other way around, if I'm not mistaken.
I feel like if you really use the program to do calculations, the fact that what you see is in agreement with the canonical order outweighs any potential other disadvantage.
Right, but also remember that Wolfram Alpha is typically using traditional form, and in traditional form, we do order things in a more familiar way.
One question I would raise is, do we have complaints about traditional form, or is it just not flexible enough or not visible enough?
Well, I think we have implicit complaints about standard form.
That I'm with Michael. I wouldn't mess with it. And Nitai, I think, said that also.
Well, okay. Is there any, Michael, do we have any great cache of formulas that people, that exist out there that are typed in a particular order and things?
Probably the Wolfram Alpha is the best what we have, because for the input interpretation, we preserve the order they came in.
Yeah. Someone is complaining on our live stream that polynomials look much worse than in LaTeX. Do they?
But LaTeX doesn't reorder.
Yeah, right. I don't think that that's necessarily an ordering issue.
What is
it? We might want to get confirmation from the person who commented about that, but I think it's LaTeX formatting somehow looks a bit different on the printed page, I think, than ours. That I don't know if that's the issue being raised here or not. It would be good if we could get clarification.
I think my understanding is that the general complaints about that when you're comparing with tech is the relative sizing of the superscripts and
placement. That's what I was thinking this might refer to. That's why I say we should try to get some clarification on that issue.
This person on our live stream is suggesting, Ethan Black 86 is suggesting we could run XE LaTeX layout engine for improved glyphs. I don't know what that is, but can I easily pull up something where I can render this? I mean, the joke back in the day was Don Knuth, when we were first developing tech form and so on, had this whole prize for if anybody can find a bug in tech, they get some number of dollars by that point. But the fact was, as soon as we started machine generating things, we just found bugs all over the place. Nobody had really tried machine generating stuff. So if we take this, for example, and can we easily render this? Is there an obvious way to render this in tech for me? Do we have our new rendering system? Anybody want to comment on that? I mean, we have this new mechanism in the cloud, at least, for being able to enter tech in text cells, which is kind of cool. I don't think that exists. Let me see if there's a development cloud I can go to which would have that.
Otherwise you can go to quicklatex.com.
Sounds relevant. Well, let's see, we could do it in our own cloud, or let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to quicklatex.com. Okay, enter the code. Can I just put this in here? No, I have to do a begin, a line, whatever it is. Do I have to do a begin end?
I think you can just copy it into where the current formula is.
Okay, there we go. And we're comparing that with, okay, so let's get that as a bitmap. Oops. Well, that looks like LaTeX for sure. Let's compare it with this. Okay. I mean, it's a different font. I don't know.
I mean, some people just plain like the tech font better, and you see that the spacing is somewhat tighter.
Between the x to the 9th y and so on.
Right. And even between the leading coefficient and the x.
Yeah. We could presumably adjust that here if we wanted to. I mean, we can. I mean, the issue that we have is, let's imagine that what we did here was, and let's see what happens if I do that. Let's say xxx plus yyyy to the 6th, let's say. Okay. And let's say traditional form of that. I mean, the problem is that we are setting ourselves up for a much more elaborate.
But now we run into single letter italics issues.
What do you mean? I mean, I think that was quite reasonable what it did there. Okay, so now it goes to that. So let's see what happens over here. I don't know. I mean, yes, it is tighter.
Right. So I think that's probably what most people are responding to. I would also say I don't think that Quick LaTeX is using the default tech font. Either that or it's coming in weird over Zoom. But it's not what I'm seeing when I locally run honest to goodness LaTeX and view it in a DVI viewer.
Okay.
Right. But what I certainly see is the much tighter spacing. And maybe the numbers, the superscripts aren't quite as scrunched as ours are. But other than that, I don't really see.
I mean, I have to say, I don't consider ours bad. And I think I like the consistency of the fact that, you know, there's this space for multiplication, which occurs everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, look, maybe the conclusion of this meeting is that there's nothing dramatic we need to do here. And, you know, I kind of had this idea that perhaps we should be looking at, you know, natural math from the wild to get an idea of what was happening out there. But I guess I'm not. It is the case, actually. I mean, one thing I'm not sure why we're not doing is we certainly can bring back. I mean, yeah, well, the stuff that's happening in the cloud, will allow one to simply render stuff as tech. And that is sort of an experiment, and it might be moved to the desktop as well for people who are trying.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That tech look would be so nice if we could get that, from PDFs, for example.
What do you mean?
Converting notebooks to PDF using perhaps some tech intermediary to get that lower look.
Which lower look? This one here?
Yes, as opposed to the traditional form. Traditional form's not bad, but that lower one's a lot better.
Okay. Well, if you really think that, we should explore this, because it's certainly, in modern times, it's certainly doable. Wasn't doable.
So I think that there is a set of optimizations for us to do on spacing. And if John Fultz was here, he would agree. We even had a meeting in our tech conference a couple of years ago focusing on typesetting issues. And maybe some people down the stream were part of that work group.
To disambiguate tech as in TECH conference, but yes.
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 Right.
Right. And we had some follow-up discussion in which I think the consensus was that Jason Harris should adjust some of the front-end spacing.
Well, did that happen?
And I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it just was waiting on NB Lite to be released, or if we never came up with a formal spec for him to implement. I'm not sure what happened to that, but
well, it's possible it was waiting for NB Lite, which would have delayed it for 5 years. So,
yeah, but I think that there are sort of benchmark formulas that we can use, and we can use wider things too. But you have to kind of you have to limit it initially, and then you can sort of go wider after that. But that's what I think. How do we do on this kind of formula, spacing wise, and all of that would sort of pop out. And some of that was brought up by that group that met, where we solicited input.
How long ago was that?
Maybe 2 years.
Well, it's probably so. We should ask Jason. Is some let's see, Manu is here from project management, right? Can you get can you ask Jason Harris offline about this, please?
Yeah, sure. 1 second.
Yeah, well, Jason is, at least last I knew, Jason was in New Zealand, so that would not be a good time to reach him.
Yeah, I understand. That's why I didn't suggest trying to reach him right this second. I was suggesting offline.
Right. Just clarifying that for the person who.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And I think that would be a very useful exercise, because, I think that when I look at formulas, it's generally okay, but a lot of things are a little bit off. It wasn't tuned. There's a round of tuning that needs to be done.
Well, it was tuned 25 years ago, but the world, things may have changed since then, and the goals may have changed slightly. But I think also
there are things that have changed. New fonts have come in, so there might be some things that were not quite retuned as we've changed the fonts.
Yes, that's true. We have changed the fonts, right?
The other point, so it came out in '96. This typesetting engine that we have, right?
Right.
And yes, sure.
The other issue, which is still unsolved, is formulas that don't mean anything, which are easy to enter in tech, and you can certainly enter them in our, but it's not particularly useful to enter them in, our notebooks.
I use it all the time.
What? Formulas that don't mean anything?
Yeah, lots of it.
What do you mean? I mean, but you have to have things like, matched operators and so on, because it's parsing things, right? I mean, if I say
no, if I just want an inline formula,
you make this mistake every time. You can have unparsable things.
No, I understand that, but if I say something like, X circle times.
Yeah, but you're using input now. I'm saying an inline formula in text. I'm not interpreting them.
No, I understand. But if I say X times, I'll get that, so let's say this is in text, and now I make an inline cell, right?
Yeah.
And I put that in there.
Yeah.
Oh, and it works just fine.
Exactly. I do it all the time.
Well, okay.
Boxes can represent arbitrary visual things. They don't have to be parsable. If you want to use them as input, they had better parse. So you can display whatever the hell you want using boxes.
Yeah, but okay, but so what happens to the spacing rules, for example?
So it has spacing rules for operators, but when you use something that's not classified as an operator, you kind of have to deal with it yourself, which you have to do in tech, by the way.
Yes,
There's a whole big chapters on the, the fine points of spacing.
No, I understand that, but I mean, if I say here,
so by the way, so we use traditional form, like in examples and other things, and in notes, in a lot in our own documentation. And one of my big grumbles with traditional form, when we use it there, is that it want to do what you did now. We never want to stack things in line. That's a bad way to do things in line because things get so small you can't read it.
Yes.
So that's always something that you have to adjust, and you have to teach everybody how to adjust. And sometimes ordering rules, but it's not just the polynomial ordering rules. It's a miscellaneous. It's sort of everything.
Well, okay, but you're saying the default there. I mean, clearly, if I have a large enough expression, if I say, some, well, here, let me do some giant number. Let's say, 100 factorial divided by, I have to do something which won't cancel. Let's say like that, right? I'll get this. Whereas if I do, something like this, it'll do that, right? And you're saying that in line, you would not like it to stack, even in that case.
That's also something that's taught in tech, LaTeX books. Don't do that. That's bad form.
Yeah, well, okay. So, I mean, we have obviously got some option that controls this.
Well, they're about whether to stack or do it in line.
Yes. Yeah.
We do. It's called what is it called? If you make that window sufficiently narrow, you'll see that fire. It's I forget. I can't remember the option names for some reason. Options of fraction box tells us that it's multiline function.
Yes. So what are you saying? So that you can set multiline function.
Right. Yeah. And make it, not basically, I think you can make it always use a slash. And certainly once it becomes narrow, it's going to, once that window becomes narrow enough, that fraction should split into numerator / denominator.
Right. Well, our live stream is commenting that tech looks better for multi-line formal math. The problem is, yeah, sure, if you type it in by hand, it'll look better. That's not the problem we're solving. The problem we're solving is we have to deal with machine-generated stuff. If you're prepared to hand line break things, you can get, well, I don't know how, that seems like one of those quintessential machine learning type problems to be able to figure out how to do this well. That's an interesting question, which we've never looked at, is whether one could use, what are the things that make hand typeset math look better, and how can we learn them?
I think it goes well beyond. I don't want to bring it up here because it's something we're working on. So
yeah, okay. All right, fair enough. Okay, I think this probably the conclusion of this meeting is we should talk to Jason, find out what happened with the tweaks that were suggested before. There is a whole separate discussion. I mean, let's wait for the tech in inline text functionality for the cloud, which should be coming, I think, in version 1.50 or maybe 1.51. See how that works and take this from there. And I think there's a meeting that was long scheduled or long in the scheduling pipeline. And yeah, anybody have any further comments? Nope. Okay. All right. Back to the things. Thanks all. Thanks to the folks on the live stream.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.